So I want to talk about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I keep saying that it doesn't work, and I just sort of want to explain why it doesn't work for people with avoidant personality disorder. It works great for other people, but not avoidance. And this is kind of be repetitive if you've seen my other videos, sort of putting it all together. But here's what happens. People with avoidance have like these extra sticky neural pathways where they, when a thought comes in or is told to them or something like that, it stays there, even if you've got proof that the opposite is true. That's just how it works. That's why people, it's almost like a PTSD type flashback situation where you just remember everything that's ever happened and it just piles on you. So what CBT is supposed to do is replace these negative thoughts with more accurate, maybe positive type ways of looking at things. So this is the problem. What happens is you might have some more positive thoughts. This is hard to talk about without an example. Okay, let's say that you think everybody in the world hates you. And that's ridiculous. It can't be everybody in the world because, most of the people by far don't even know you exist. So that's impossible. That's the type of thing that CBT would deal with. And you would go, oh, if you were a good CBT patient, you would go, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess that's right. I guess most people don't hate me. Life is grand. For an avoidant person, the problem is that the original thought, whenever you've got something paired to it, the original thought is triggered, and they've proven that that if you have a sort of a negative thought, unless you're a complete psychopath, that they resonate stronger with people, so it's more powerful. And the problem with avoidant people is they can't override the thoughts. They can sort of put them parallel, and so that you think the same thing at the same time. Okay, but if you're thinking a negative thought about something and a positive thought about something, it's like the negative one hits you twice as much as the positives. So every time you think of a positive thought, you're actually getting double hit with the negatives again, and you actually end up worse off than where you started. And so if you try to tell yourself positive mantras or whatever, they actually bring you down, because the more that you pay attention to the negative thoughts, which is impossible not to do, you get more proof of it. You get more and more proof of whatever the negative is. It makes more sense to you, and the positive thought seems more and more ridiculous. Like in my case, I've been looking into avoidance and avoidant personality disorder for quite some time, and basically I've come up with mathematical proof of the avoidance that that my baseline as a human is much lower than average people, which is what I've said. I mean, that avoidant personality disorder, it's as if you have a black mark on your soul and that other people can tell, and they react to you like an avoidant because you are avoidant. And it doesn't matter that it came from an abusive background. There's just something broken inside. And I have proof of this now. That's serious scientific proof that in my case, my baseline is much lower than average folks for sure, but then even people who are not good people, who are extremely selfish and throw everybody else under the bus and hurt and manipulate and use people as long as they're getting something that they want. They couldn't care less about other people. My baseline is much lower than even them, so that therefore I don't get forgiven or accepted for anything I do. So it doesn't matter if I do something good or bad. My baseline is so low, and people know it, that I can't be forgiven for breathing and living. And this is what has happened with all the therapy. You know, before I was sort of ignorant and I didn't have proof of it, but now I have proof of that. So before it was a hunch, and now it's fact. And that's what happens when you go through the therapy, because you focus on it so much, that eventually you find the proof of it. Now, okay, so that's really depressing. Don't do CBT. But the other part of it, you know, how to get better, sort of, as an avoidant person is this. In addition to CBT, people tend to say, okay, I know what the problem is, and I'm going to throw myself into life, and I'm just going to do everything right all at once. This does not work. Absolutely does not work. Don't do that. Because this is why. Avoidant people, how they interact with others, it's like a pendulum. And you're tied at the top, and you can push out a little bit, but the harder you push, the harder you come back the other direction. So you might be able to go out and be super social and great and loving and wonderful for a few short amounts of time, hours, days sometimes. You know, sometimes people can pull it off for weeks, but then you swing back and you're way worse than you ever were, and extremely depressed, and it's very common you become suicidal, and you think you're horrible in every way, shape, and form, and didn't deserve this, and you wallow back in this terrible, terrible place because you, as far as you went forward, if you threw yourself too fast, you go back that far. The thing to remember if you do this is, again, it's a pendulum. So even if you get flung way, 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 way back because you went so far outside your comfort zone, that's okay. Breathe. You will come back to your baseline again. You'll come back to the middle. So how to make improvements is to not throw yourself in, and to not do CBT on lovely and wonderful, and I have every right to be alive because I'm alive. Oh my God, that drives me crazy. That's like the most BS thing I've ever heard in my life. Sorry. But no, I don't think that people have a right to be alive just because they were born. Please. I think people need to earn their place in this world. But anyway, okay, let me rephrase that. I think I need to earn my place in this world. I think there are some people that deserve to just be existing because they are existing. But that doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, so what you need to do is you need to make very tiny little pushes out. And if you take these little tiny pushes out, eventually that fulcrum at the top of the pendulum will start to move over a little bit. And you can become more comfortable in your life. And so you can work on the things that are really completely intolerable, and start to make those a little bit better. Don't do everything. Don't try to live up to some standard that the rest of the world has come up with, because it just doesn't apply. And you know what? That's okay. There are people that are different. There are just people that are completely different. I mean, everything. You know, you've got people doing different jobs, and that's okay. You've got people, you look at relationships with people. You know, you've got people that are married out of, the day after they graduate high school, and you've got people that never get married in their entire life. stay devoted to somebody for their entire life, or have multiple relationships every other year and have kids with 6 or 7 people, and that's fine. That's okay. So, and there are people that don't have relationships at all, and that is also okay. And it's okay to be avoidant. Don't like it, change the bits that you don't like. Don't pay the slightest bit of attention of this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have a job. You're supposed to have a spouse. You're supposed to have blah, blah. Who cares? Do your own dumb thing. And, somebody wants to criticize it, whatever, who cares? And they're not living your life. Yes, these are what you're supposed to do, but do what's best for you. So pick the things that you have the biggest issue with in your life and work on that only. Forget about having to have all this other stuff. Yeah. Who cares? You know what? I have a cat. You've seen it in the video. And I get crap all the time. Why don't you have a dog? Because I don't want to have a dog. I want to have a cat. And that's just it. So it's okay to be yourself. And yourself is avoidant. So forget about the societal pressures. Look at what you want and what you need and what you would like to change. And again, slowly, slowly, slowly. Put everything else aside, all the society's dictations, and slowly work toward it. One thing at a time, not everything, one thing at a time. Break it down as much as you can. Actually, that's what therapy is good for, is to help you break your big goals down into little goals, down into smaller chunks, and down into minuscule little itty-bitty things that you can do in a very slow pace, and can check in with you and make sure that you're very, very slowly progressing, moving that fulcrum over just a little bit in the direction you want, so that you don't have to do these big swings. If you push out, then you go flying back and end up in a worse place than where you started. Have to wait to get back to your baseline before you can do anything. But regular CBT doesn't work. So do what works for you. And again, it's okay for you to decide that you want one little thing in your life, and it's not what society tells you you want. That, you want to have, I don't know, whatever, that you would like to have, a job where you can work from home and be quote unquote more avoidant. That's fine. Do that. Work toward that. Forget about, oh, you're supposed to have a partner or whatever. Forget that. Maybe you want that next. But do what you want right now. And basically, I'm repeating myself big time, but, ignore what society tells you to do. And don't do CBT, because it will put you in the pit. And that's not good.